Hello and welcome to the race where we are about to start our second race at Daytona 15 laps in practice for the round 5 of the manufacturer series. After having not a so good first race, getting taken out twice during the race, I've decided to start from the back, issue a challenge, not qualify, and see if I can pull off the last to first challenge. What you're about to see is how it went. As we start this race, starting P14, 13 Dadford, Mario, Myra, GTH, MC Bud, Danny Rio, Slow, JT, Arjadov, Fede, Prokov, Talis, and GTHH. We get underway for this 15 lap race. My goal, start from last, come to the front. Let's see what we can do as we ride on board with the McLaren and Ferrari driver. The Ferrari hits the inside barrier going into turn 1, causing absolute chaos. Let's quickly have a look what happened there. As we get underway again, the Ferrari doing everything as normal so far as we approach the very unforgiving turn 1. Outbrakes the McLaren, nowhere to go. Looks like a bit of a desync issue on my replay here, but he clearly hits the wall and causes some absolute chaos to the cars behind him. 6 down to 14 have now got a gap to 5th place as Danny Rio goes up the inside and makes the move. Slaughter goes wide, can't get his tires off the grass and spins out in the process here, nearly taking out the BMW Z4 of Myra, I think it is, as we go through the first sector, already gaining 3 places on the opposition. After that mega start, we also set it up the inside of GTHH, giving him a bump, him not realizing we were there. Executing the move very quickly up to P10, 2 wide ahead of us, heading up onto the back straight. The Ferrari holding the inside line. Do we stick around the outside as we watch on? The Renault gets pushed out wide, sits on the high line now, essentially letting us through with free draft on Danny Rio, where the Renault, not great straight line speed as it is, sits on the outside line, taking a long way around, losing 2 places in the space of 1 corner here, as it's now a drag race down to the bus stop chicane, probably the most frustrating part for anyone who drives this track this week will be hating this part. With enough experience here, I've now got the pace to get through here quite easily, but there's absolute chaos behind us. The McLaren, don't know what happens there, but we're about to go back and have a look, don't we? As we rewind, we watch the McLaren going absolutely rapid into the corner. If he was on his own, he would have gotten through there nice and cleanly, just about. But there's traffic. As Slow's, who spun out in the 3rd corner, has already caught back up to 10th place after spinning out. There's all this chaos gone. The McLaren all the way down in last now, lost about 10 seconds in that move. Not really having respect for the cars on track, taking himself out in the process. As we start lap 2 here, the top 3 comfortably pulling away from P4 down. Got a nice little gap there, but they're going to have a very hectic battle here, which in the process is going to mess them all up. But for now, they've got a gap on 4th and 5th just as we see 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th come around the corner, with myself already up into 8th place with 1 lap down. Lap 2 and I've gained 6 places already. As we move into the middle of the first sector, we can see all the cars running through. GT leading Talis, leading Prokop, with a small gap down to the Spaniard in 4th, Shohov in 5th, JT in 6th, MC Bud 7th, myself 8th, with already a gap forming to 9th with Mario, Danny, Slowos, made up place after making that big mistake on turn 3, with Dadfun and GTHH making down the order, as GT after taking the spin and the bust of chicane is already out in contention for this race. Myra completing a nice clean move on the F-type there, the Renault showing its turning ability there as they go back onto the main straight now. Rotating back to the race leaders, the Genesis really struggling on the straight line speed here to get past GT, with the Mercedes just sitting behind, just biding its time here. As they come into the bus stop chicane for the 2nd time this race, it is really neck and neck between these drivers. They've still got the pace to keep ahead of P4, but they need to be careful not to hold each other up, as P4 and P5 are really just waiting for something to happen ahead of them. As the next pack is JT, Bud, myself coming through, with the back end of the pack now coming through as well, the bus stop chicane. Still relatively close together, but the top 5 have already spread out. As I'm now in this battle for P6, trying to find a way through, tried to go up the inside of JT, gave him a bit of a desync tap there, gave him a bit of a boost. Unfortunately, kind of compromised my ability to get past him here. as we start our third lap, sitting about 10 seconds behind the leaders at this point in the race, as we let JT sit in the lead here just for a moment, as MC Bud thinks about going up the inside, but backs out of it, allowing me to get ahead. As we do a quick rewind here, let's see what happens here. Tallis gets ahead here, but unfortunately just runs a bit too deep. Comes back in. And yeah, that's about it really. Tallis and Prokop now fighting for P2. GT's got a bit of breathing room for the moment being, as I send it up the inside of JT. No, I don't. He manages to hold me off as we go back through the switcheroo. I do not have to drive out the corner. Third gear on that Alfa Romeo really suffers without the turbocharge for the first 20-30 meters, but then it picks up speed. As we send it up the inside, very lovely move there, nice and clean. What an epic overtake by myself there. Really needed to get that done as soon as possible here. As we watch it from JT's point of view here, send it up the inside. He saw it coming, he gave me the space. And that's P6 now with only 5 cars left to overtake this race. As we come onto the back straight, the McLaren in P5 going a bit wide there. That might leave him vulnerable to myself very shortly, as we see the Spaniard in the skyline got a tiny gap on the McLaren. The McLaren, lacking a lot of straight line speed in this race, will really suffer from not having that drafting ability now. As we wind down the order, there's a significant gap between, I believe that's 8th and 7th now, separated into 3 groups now: the leading pack, the mid pack, and the back pack. And this last place who's still not recovered from his mistake on the first lap. With Tallis now taking the lead of this race, we must have missed that, as GT8H and Prokop all still battling for the lead here. It's a really close battle, and it's just slowing them down, unfortunately. As you can see myself on screen there, just there's a bit of desync happens there, thinking Tallis has crashed it, but he's not. As they go into turn 1 for the 4th time this race. BMW right behind them, Mercedes on the outside. I think there's a bit of a contact there as Tallis comes back on track. More contact going on. More contact, crash. GT lost a lot of time there, promoting Prokop into P2. Tallis having to go defensive there. As we rewind it to have another look at it from the Mercedes point of view. The Genesis, yeah, definitely gets a hit on the backside here. GT slowing down a bit, causing Prokop to go into the back of him, causing another collision with Tallis, and it is just a massive domino effect here, where Tallis ends up keeping P1, Prokop keeps P2, and GT just falls down to 3rd place, unfortunately. He has now lost his lead, which he has held since lap 1. As we come through sector 1, we got Tallis, Prokop, GT, Fedi Marley not far behind in P4, the McLaren in P5 who's out of his draft, with myself now in the McLaren's draft, with MC Bud and Slawo leading up the backpack in 9th place. Not a bad drive from him, so he started out in last place by the time he got to sector 1 on the first lap. As we see the back markers come through of the BMW Z4, as well as the McLaren driver, who looks like he's catching up to the BMW, but he is miles behind. As we look back at the front leaders, P1 and P2 are really pulling away from the BMW driver now. Unfortunately, he has just lost a draft. He's lost a lot of time here. But more things must have gone on for him during the lap here. As we head up to the bus stop chicane, he really needs to make an impression here to close on that gap, hoping they make a mistake here as he comes through the exit, and he's binned it. He's in the wall. I think that's his race over. I think that he said that's enough for me, and he's done. Obviously not happy with what happened to him here. He's quit and he's gone on his way. As we rewind now, everyone moves up a place just about from P3 down. As you see myself right behind the McLaren here, not really having a place to go at the moment, just too soon to overtake him. As you can see me lining up a move for him into turn 1, giving him a flash of my lights. Do I go for the move into turn 1? No, I give him space. Obviously not the time and place to do it here. As I try and go for the switchback, missing the apex just here. As we come through the right, left, right behind and flashing my lights on him. Got a good run, sending it up the inside and getting a nice overtake here as he tries to perform the switchback himself. We've caught up to the skyline. Our teamwork in the draft on the backstroke really worked favours for both of us here, as I'm now right up the skyline's placket here as we go into sector 2 into my favourite overtaking opportunity, and I've gone for the move. Left the door open and I've walked right through it. Thank you, sir. the consequence of this has left him vulnerable to Zhadov here. Does Zhadov got to move up the inside? He fucking does! As we go for an instant replay on that one. He's just broken so early for that corner, gone wide. He's left, I'm side by side with him by the time I get to the apex. And I've made the move and I've made it stick. What an epic overtake by myself. That is going to be a great overtaking opportunity during the race day on Wednesday. And Zhadov, adding insult to injury for the Skyline driver here, overtakes him as well, up into P4, fed Marley, down to P5, lost 2 places in the space of 2 corners, with MC Bud now also moving up and catching up with that little battle going on, bringing them closer into fray with Slower, now up into P8 with Danny Reed in P9. As we return to the race leaders, Tallis and Prokop pretty much left unchallenged from a third driver since the BMW disconnected on lap 3, as they now switch positions heading down to turn 1 with myself and P3 not too far behind for about 6 or 7 seconds at this point behind them, closing the gap up. I haven't lost too much time in the traffic overall in this race, with it being lap 5 already being up into P3, might I add, as we watch the cars come through the field. Prokop maintained that P1 after overtaking Tallis before the end of the last lap, with Fede Marley going up for the move. I did say the McLaren lacked straight line speed. Fede Marley going up the inside. Both of them have run wide here. The McLaren driver coming back on track and keeping that position. Let's see what happens here. So he's gone on the inside, he's made the place. They've both missed the corner. Zhadov is able to turn the car back. I'm not sure if Fede's got traction control now, so I reckon what's happened there, a desync issue has happened, and they've made contact on their screens. Now that's caused a bit of an issue. They've lost a little bit more time to myself now, and it's brought MC Bud back into the fray, with JT just behind him. Now these two having a nice little close battle here. JT looking to have a better exit there. We might see if he goes for an overtake here, as we follow Danny Rio, Dad Fun, and Mario. Mario catching up to the F-Type Jag, trying to capitalize on, I'm assuming, his better power here, because he's obviously caught him up, as the McLaren of GT in last place has now finally caught someone up. The Renault RS01, he obviously had a crash at some point, which we must have missed, has now got a company of the McLaren driver who lost it on lap 1 as he tried to send it through the entire field like a bowling ball. As Mario goes wide on the right-hander on the infield track, pulls away just enough, however unfortunately is just not going to have enough. Both of them, I think the Renault is just slightly better straight line speed than the McLaren there, so I think he'll be safe this lap. As we watch on board with the Jag F-Type, known for its really good fuel consumption. They all look about the same on fuel, looking at it right now. As we look at JT, really closing up on MC Bud in the Red Bull Porsche 911 here. Really closing up here. MC Bud having a moment. No, JT has a moment. Nearly bins it. Loses a lot of time. And what was looking like an opportunity to make an overtake onto the next lap has looked like another lap to recover for JT. As Slavo still on the fringes of getting into the top 7 here after, you know, being in P14 at the start of lap 1 just about. As Mario got a really good exit out of that section, really closed the gap up. Like I said, he's going to be closing in. He hasn't pitted yet. No one's gone for the pits yet. So everyone is still on 0 stops. Where you are is essentially where you are in the race right now. Mario got the speed here, sitting at 260. He's gone into the pits. He is pulling the pin as well as Zhadov. They are now pulling the pin and letting fire to the enemies. And let's see what will happen now that other cars are starting to pit, going for the ever-powerful undercut here at Daytona. As we see a quick replay of moments after the Renault getting past, he's gone wide and let the McLaren back through again. As we fast forward to the end of lap 7, still in third place, about 4 seconds behind the race leaders now. Prokop and Tallis hopping into their pits at the halfway point of this race. Myself posting a 45.8 on the lap before in clear air, really starting to push up and catch up to the race leaders. As we observe the pit stops of Prokop and Tallis here, as all the cars start to overtake them as Prokop pulls into his pit stop, gets a change of tyres and probably about 20 litres of fuel needed to make it to the end. He's gone out, he hasn't put any fuel in. As you can see, Prokop still putting fuel in, only leaving the pits now, putting about 20 litres in. Both went in the pits with about the same amount of fuel, not even at half race distance yet, and less than a half a tank of fuel then. Prokop taking a massive gamble here, as he's already out the pits, whereas Tallis is only leaving now. Remember, they entered the pits at the same time here. Prokop getting a really good pit exit here, as he gets ahead of Bud and Danny Rio here, having a bad exit out the corner. But most importantly, he's cleared these two cars, which Tallis has sat behind it. As MC Bud brake checks the Ferrari, Tallis says thank you very much. Gets a free place here. It looks like we'll go back a bit here, go before the pit lane. We're going back into turn 1, let's see what happens. As you can see, they're still putting no fuel in of Tallis, as Prokop is now leaving and old mate is putting fuel in. They're coming into the hairpin right-hander. Danny Rio closes up massively here, thinks about going through, gives him a couple taps here. He's obviously not like that. There may have been previous things here. Danny Rio trying to get through. Taps them, you can see a full send of the brakes there. Very, very dirty driving by MC Bud here, who I thought was quite a good driver most of this race, but he's just done a very, very dishonest thing there, which is quite frustrating and unfair to Danny Rio, who's also received front bumper damage here. As Slower has moved up into P4 thanks to a couple cars pitting ahead of him. After looking back on myself, got a massive gap to the car behind me in P2, but the main gap we need to pay attention to is P5 Prokop, who is only just ahead of this pack here. As they arrive at the bus stop chicane, Tallis nailing the in-out section here, getting a really good exit and getting right in the draft of MC Bud here, with Danny Rio also right up behind here. All of us watching these three drivers come around the banking corner heading onto the final straight. Tallis really needs to make this move now, otherwise he could lose a lot of time that he just cannot afford to lose at the moment. Not only is he racing Prokop, he is also racing me. As Slowo and MC Bud pull into the pits on the end of lap 8. As we look at lap 9, Danny Rio still needing to pit, sitting right behind Tallis, a full pit stop behind essentially, as they go into turn 1. And you can see Prokop not too far away there, as the field is quite spread out here, mixing and matching drivers who have and have not pitted here. As the cars yet to pit are myself, Fede Marley, JT, Danny Rio, Dad Fun and Shadov, I believe. As we head into the second right-hander of the infield section, Prokop looking at his fuel, he looks like he hasn't used much in the last lap, still sitting on about 43% there. But he's going to make it last another 6 full laps, whereas Tallis can just go full metal here and just look after, well, he doesn't need to look after anything. It's 8 laps on those on mediums, which can easily do 10 to 12 laps if you need them to, which is why I still haven't pitted. The reason why I haven't pitted is because I just didn't want to get in dirty air. I just need to clear everything I could, leave it as late as I can. Still managing the pace. I'm still pushing the quickest laps in the race right now, doing 46.5, 46.0 and a 45.8 in the last 3 laps. As we turn into the pits now on lap 9 with a massive open air gap behind us, at least we think we do, as Fede Marley also follows us in here. Yes, he does. Which now makes JT the provisional race leader here, unless he follows us in as well. He does. Looking at these stats though, I've used the most fuel out of everyone here. That's going to cost me an extra second in the pits, unfortunately, as a result. As Prokop has now returned to his rightful place in P1 after underfueling, hoping to do for a massive undercut and strategy call here as we start lap 10. As we watch Tallis and Danny Rio coming out of the first corner, we see myself leave the pit lane there behind Tallis, but most crucially ahead of Danny Rio, who's yet to pit here, as he nearly bins it around the right-hander here. Right behind Tallis, not too far away from Mr. Prokop there. I've done a really good strategy here, and I'm right in contention for a second place here as we go through the second right-hander on the infield section. nailing the exit. This is where things are really starting to heat up, as I'm going to spend the next couple laps on my 2 laps fresher tyres to really try and catch these guys up now. Coming round the back straight, coming down across the control line right now, I have absolutely pulled right behind Tallis right now in his draft, right up behind him. Not really thinking about a move here. It'd be a very silly choice by me, as we are now right in Tallis' draft here. This is now a battle for position, and it's going to be a really difficult one. I'm now on the top drivers now, first and second. These guys were about a second lap slower than me on race pace, as I get a really good exit out of the corner, but you can just see the Alfa Romeo just really lags on the exit here. But as we get to the apex of this little left kink here, I really pull it back, and by this point I'm catching them up, but we've come to the end of the straight at this point. As you know, I can really brake late here, knowing when to stop when I need to, getting a really good exit out of the corner, and he's just not able to get away from me, even with that better drive, as we go on to the straight for the first time this lap. Let's see if I can get ahead of him before the bus stop chicane. As we ride on by with Prokop, as you see him short shift to 6th gear very early here, taking some very extreme fuel saving countermeasures here. His lead, which was about 5 or 6 seconds originally, is now looking like 1 or 2 seconds from this perspective, as he's only just going to the bus stop chicane now. Nailing the entry here on my side here, getting really good exit here. Tallis having to brake mid-bus stop chicane here, really loses a lot of time here, bringing me right up behind him. If I don't get him now, it's going to be a very embarrassing moment for myself, as I'm in his draft carrying a lot more speed than him. As we come to the end of lap 11, 4 full laps to go, let's see what happens. Fully centered around the outside, which is the start-finish line. Move is complete before we get into turn 1. Getting a really good clean line. I think Tallis understood there was no need to really put me under pressure there. He knew full well he wasn't going to catch up to me here. As I've now unleashed onto Prokop, whose lead was about 2 seconds, about 30 seconds ago, is now barely holding a second on me as I go very deep into that first right-hander in the infield here. Nearly leaving myself vulnerable to Tallis, as Tallis have a look up the inside here, trying to get that place back. He does think about it, but I cover him off and take my normal driving line. Now catching Prokop really closely. The pressure is on. Does he have enough fuel to give it his all for the rest of the race? Because he's about to lose 2 places if he doesn't. Visibly catching up to Prokop here. You can tell he is doing everything he can to save fuel here, except for putting fuel in his car. As I don't have an exceptional line through there, unfortunately, but I'm still close enough to be in Prokop's draft here, and with him needing to save fuel, I am definitely going to catch him up here. Do I get him into turn 1 here? Do I get him before the start-finish line? What's going to happen here? As Tallis just dropping off a little bit, I can be a bit aggressive into turn 1 as we come across the start of the 13th lap of the race, right behind Prokop here. Do I go around the outside? Do I go up the inside? No, just not close enough this time around, as I nail the exit out of turn 1, leave me open for another dive up the inside here into turn 3. Send it up the inside, really nails it, don't think he really knew if I was coming then. He left the door open. I said thank you very much as we take an instant replay, watching both perspectives of this move here, as we see myself getting a very, very good exit here as I go attacking here. He doesn't defend his line. Up the inside, desync as well as maybe me running a bit wide in the corner. He's left the door open. That was a clean move in my eyes as I now take the lead of the race with Prokop and Tallis right behind me, so I can't make a mistake with only 2.5 laps remaining, with Prokop right behind me, Tallis not far behind. Prokop getting a really bad exit out of the corner, leaving very vulnerable to Tallis as Tallis sends it up the inside into P2. Coming onto the back straight now. Does he make it stick for the moment? Yes, he does. Prokop really not even challenging here, which really must mean he is really struggling for fuel now. Even sitting in the draft, he's still dropping back in the rearview mirror on the top right here. With myself already out of the draft with Tallis. It's just about pulling away, maintaining the lead, and bringing it home. As we fast forward onto the penultimate lap, we go back to JT, who is now out of fuel with 2 laps remaining. What an unfortunate result for him. He was all the way up in P4 or 5 at one point in this race. Now dropping down to last place. What a very unfortunate result for him here. As a lot of drivers now get a free place as a result. All those who have not put fuel in, Danny Rio look like he might be struggling for fuel as well. Slavo isn't. Those who aren't in the red in their fuel are definitely going to be safe this lap. As we look around with Prokop looking like he's got only fumes left in his petrol tank. I'm sitting myself above 10% there comfortably. Tallis, I think he's a little bit less than I am yet, but Tallis should have enough to get to the end of the race here. As Prokop is, you can just see him really tiptoeing through the track with Zhandov and Fede Mali not too far behind. Zhandov getting ahead at some point, not sure if he got ahead of the pit stops or by a clean overtake, but whatever he's done, he's been able to get ahead and might even have a chance of overtaking, getting a sneaky podium in this result. As Danny Rio really struggling for fuel there, might not even make it to the end himself, as Dadfun should make it, and GTAH, who has had a very shocking race, safe to say, being last from lap 1, being last the whole race. But he's managed to catch up to drivers, so it would have been nice to see what he could have accomplished if he hadn't have had that mistake that he did. As right on board, cockpit view with Prokop, his fuel gauge is bone dry right now as he coasts into the bus stop chicane, not wanting to use any fuel. But now he's going to have to use a lot more fuel as he goes straight into 4th gear. Does he have enough fuel to get to the end of the lap? And he's out of fuel. Kilometer away from the finish line, and he has ran out of fuel. I think he's going to lose 2 places here. Will he make it? As Zhandov catching him up, promoting himself into P3 as myself and Tallis cross the start-finish line in P1 and P2. As Prokop loses another place, just cruising at 100 k's an hour, doing what he can to make it. Hazard lights on. Slavo, after being binned on lap 1, brings it up to finish P5 with 14 entrants. It's a very good recovery drive here, as Prokop looks like he has made it into P6 by the skin of his teeth. Danny Ria has just enough fuel to make it himself. MC Bud down in 8th, Dadfun 9th, and GTHH all the way down to 10th place. JT obviously retiring after running out of fuel on lap 14. It is a very good race, good result, and after coming from P14 at the start of this race, having to overtake every car on track, moving my way all the way up to P1 with about 3 laps remaining, I have absolutely smashed it, and the practice I've put into this race already is paying off massively. Looking forward to the race on Wednesday. Let's see if I can replicate this type of form when it comes to it. Thank you for watching. This is the Dreamer X2. Have a good one. Peace out. If you're interested in seeing my point of view on these overtakes, I will be adding my perspective in my VR2 from now.